Our cornerback rankings for the 2025 NFL Draft are coming your way today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Joe, do you have a beverage on hand by chance?
Got my water.
I'd like you to raise your glass, and I guess I'll have to hold up my
your ice
team
shaker.
Specific one. You will pour one out for Xavier Restrepo.
Oh boy,
buddy ran a 4.83. 4.83.
Not great.
40-yard dash.
It's not great.
I am heartbroken. I really love Restrepo's game, but he was 200 at the Senior Bowl and came into his pro day 2 months later at 209 and ran a 4.83.
He said no more stopwatches, just football. Let's go.
And I get it, but brother, I mean, it's the difference between getting picked in the late third and getting picked probably late on day 3. Like, that's an expensive time that we just ran.
Right. You got to do this.
Times come in the form of Rolexes and wristwatches, but we got a different kind of expensive time here on our hands.
You got to go on the Shane Scov plan and just avoid the 40. You got to know that's what he runs, right? This wasn't a mystery to him. He didn't wake up yesterday and run the first 40 of his life. You got to not run that thing.
I know his trainer, so I don't know what the deal is. I haven't talked to him, but yeah, I saw he put something. I was like, he didn't run the time that we knew he was capable of running yesterday.
It looked slow.
Yeah.
The video is like, not good.
Like, would you rather run at 209? You're a sub 6 foot wide receiver. Would you rather run at 209 and run a 4.76 to 4.83, or be a sub 6 foot receiver that's 195 and runs like a 4.68?
Neither is great.
Right.
I would rather run the faster time.
Right.
Yeah. Because that's going to be on the index card for the rest of his life,
The RES card is not looking great for Xavier Restrepo. But the guys that are going to have to cover Xavier Restrepo in the future are the guys we're talking about today. Joe and I each have a dozen corners that we're going to go through with our position rankings, the first of our position ranking groups here today on the show. And we're going to talk about the class as a whole. And we're going to count that, or I guess count up. We're going to start at 1 and go first half dozen and second half dozen to start here on the show. So without further ado, you want our first mini battle of the boards for the year?
Yeah. Nice little duel here.
Let me know who you got 1 through 6.
Well, the cool thing about my 1 through 6 is it encapsulates all of my first round grades and my 1-2 grades. So everyone that I would
same for me.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's cool.
I have a top 10, 3 first round picks, and 2 late 1, early 2s.
All right. So here we are. This is my top 6. Number 1 is Travis Hunter, corner out of Colorado.
Okay.
Number 2, I have Will Johnson out of Michigan.
Okay.
Number 3, Jahdae Barron out of Texas. Those are my 3 firm. You are first round grades in any draft.
Okay.
And these next 3 are 1-2s. At number 4, I have Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky.
Okay.
Number 5, I have Trey Amos out of Ole Miss.
Okay.
And at number 6, Azareye'h Thomas, Florida State.
Okay. So I have 1 through 3 is chalk. I have Travis Hunter. I have a top 10 grade on. Will Johnson, Jahdae Barron, I have first round grades on. My number 4, I do have a first round grade on Shavon Rebel from East Carolina.
Savone
Rebel. Is that not what I said?
You said Savon. It's Savone,
Savone Rebel.
Yeah.
And then I have Trey Amos at 5, and I have Darien Porter at 6.
Ooh. Fun.
And there's one of the two that I did not add in who we're, I guess, not going to see similarly. So we'll save that one for, I guess, the back half. But
okay, so you're not in on Maxwell Hairston.
It's either Hairston or Azareye'h Thomas.
Okay.
Let's talk about this group up top. We got 4 in common here in the first 6. Hunter feels very self-explanatory.
So
how much are you willing to fade Will Johnson? Because it feels like the football world is fading Will Johnson at a degree in which I'm not prepared to do yet.
Yeah, I'm not either because I watched the tape. I wish he had a little bit more length, you know? I wish he had a little bit more length, and I wish that there wasn't some thought that he packed it in this season on Michigan. You know, obviously they win the national championship. He has an unbelievable season, turf toe injury, and all of a sudden you don't see him again, right? And they had no quarterback, right? I mean, it was not a good year for Michigan football. So I get all that, but I also understand the talent. I understand the player he was in 2023, and it's special. And so I can't. I'm not quitting him. I'm not. So that's at your own risk because I think he's a pretty special player.
Yeah, the length that Joe's alluding to, I mean, 30 1/8 inch arms for a 6'2" corner it's an outlier.
What you're hoping for, yeah.
Right? You know, and it's if he had a little bit more wingspan to him, I definitely think it would get everybody who's kind of on the fence about, there's aggressiveness on the perimeter, and he's aggressive with his eyes, and he's aggressive undercutting throws. And I think that has some people who watch Will Johnson kind of say there's potentially some variance here. And if he's not going to make those plays to the same degree when the timing's a little bit sharper, or alternatively, if you have patient quarterbacks with good protection who can kind of manipulate him with his eyes, you can kind of pull him and tug him out of position a little bit. So I think that's kind of the book for Will, but I'm in the same boat as you where I have him as a top 10 player in the class. He's sitting 4th on my board when it's all said and done.
We haven't really talked much together about Jahdae Barron out of Texas, but we both come in. He's our CB3 for both of us.
Yep.
And let's go ahead and talk about length. We don't have it here either. We have sub 30 inch arms for Jahdae Barron. But what's interesting for Jahdae Barron is from a measurables perspective, pretty much exactly Trent McDuffie. In every single measurement, he's Trent McDuffie. And even a similar narrative where maybe there's some belief that Trent McDuffie has to live in the slot, even though he was an outside player at Washington. And then, of course, he validates himself as an outside receiver this year for Kansas City. Barron didn't really play the slot. He's an outside corner for Texas. And
he was slot before 24.
Well, 2024 is the only season I know about. So he only played on the outside. So the point being there is that, sure, if you want to label him as an inside player, that's okay, but I don't think you have to. I think it's a very similar conversation to that you would have about Trent McDuffie.
Yeah. And just, I think the things that I feel the best about with Jahdae Barron are some of the things that maybe get, I don't want to say overlooked, but people's primary focus with defensive backs is creating turnovers and forcing stops on passing downs. But this really is the last 3 years. You go back and in 22, he played 22 and 23, he played just short of 400 snaps in the nickel in each of those 2 seasons, and then plays more than half of his career snaps as an outside corner this year at Texas, right? So you have a significant body of work in both situations. Run defense is really good. The tackling's really good. His ability to insert into the core, the physicality on the perimeter. He can play in your face. He's physical at the top of the route stem. That's where he made a number of his plays on the football and coverage. I just think you can really do a lot with him, and he's a dense football player that's not the longest, like you said, but he carries the weight very well, and I think it shows up in how combative he is in all phases. So, no, if you're looking for Darien Porter type builds or Azareye'h Thomas type builds on the outside, Jahdae Barron's probably going to be an inside guy for you. You're just automatically going to have that typecast for him. But the tape's really good, and the breakout happening when he was allowed to move outside and play outside more, I think bodes really well for him.
Yeah, the turnovers really started to show up this past season. Okay, so we're just scratching the surface here. We kind of got into the top 3 guys. We'll continue to compare, contrast, debate, all that. Stick with us, folks. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. You can pick your favorites. I got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. Look, if your bracket is busted, maybe you're like me, you picked Memphis to go to lose to Houston in the championship game. You could still get in on the day-to-day action that's going on. It doesn't matter if your bracket's busted. You can also stay in the action with tournament games happening almost every single day. There's always something exciting to bet on. Plus, it's easy and fast. The FanDuel app is simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get in on the college hoops action all tournament long.
All right. CB4 for me was Shavon Rebel. CB4 for you was
Maxwell Hairston.
So Hairston for me, spoiler, is CB7. Okay. And I have as high of a round 2 grade without being a 1-2 lean that I can get.
So we have a similar, the valuation's similar here.
Yeah.
Let me tell you what I like about Maxwell Hairston. And I recognize 2024, maybe not his best year. He had like a shoulder injury that he missed a bunch of time, and then he came back and like the tackling was bad.
Yes.
I watched it like one game of 2024, but then I watched a bunch of 2023, and I really, really like what I saw. And the word that I kind of come back to with Maxwell is he's just aggressive in everything that he does. Now there's some risk reward with that. I absolutely recognize that, but like the way that he hunts the football in zone, boy, I really like it. The way that he's willing to, I know he's 183 pounds. You wish that he maybe had a little bit more mass to match the physical nature, but he goes after it. And that aggressive nature, I thought it led to some significant playmaking that while there is some risk reward with it, I think that you can I think there's a coaching element that can probably get him in the right headspace to balance that out a little bit more. But I thought the high level stuff was really, really exciting, and obviously a pretty dynamic athlete here.
Yeah, running 4.28 with 10.9 broad and 39-inch vert. The explosiveness is very apparent, and he's one of those guys. And there's a lot of guys in this class that I don't think can say this. You try to high-low him, you try to isolate him and put him in conflict as a zone defender. He has the hips and the foot speed and the transitional ability to sink when it's appropriate to sink or to trigger and stuff in front of his face. And that kind of intermediate and shallow twitch and explosiveness, I think, sets itself up really well for him. A lot of the guys that are hunting the ball outside the numbers, they're leveraged over the top, and then they take their T-step. I know T-step, the DB world was magically a massive debate.
Hey, you can't be wrong. You either agree with Deion Sanders or Asante Samuel. You're okay in either case,
Asking 99.99% of the population to do it the way that Deion did, it's probably not going to work out for 99.99% of the population, right? It's a special player. Hairston might have the movement skills to pull it off without the T-step. But that's a testament to, I think, what you point out. I think one of my big worries with him is there's an aggressiveness, but when you ask him to play physical, and as a tackler, I think he's a good tackler when his shoulder's healthy. I think that's important to note.
Yeah.
But I don't think functional strength is like a pillar piece of his game. I think he's more of a striker. Mm-hmm. And then the worry is if you're a striker and you're pushing 180, I think he was 179 at the Senior Bowl, how do you hold up? And I think that's a question that I have with Maxwell Hairston coming off of a season in which he had a shoulder injury. But I see some Jack Jones in him. I see a lot of quick twitch, compact, low to the ground. But the ball skills were very apparent with what he had 3 pick sixes, I think, in 2023. I mean, he was all over the field.
Yeah. Well, I think we share in that concern. I guess where I would take some hope is like if we wanted to get him, I think he's got room to get to add mass. If we can get him to pushing 190, we've got athleticism to lose.
Right.
Right.
It's
Not
diminishing
really
returns past
right.
a certain point.
Oh, darn,
we run 4.36 now instead of 4.28. Like
we'll be okay.
Right?
We'll be okay.
And then Trey Amos was the other player that we had significant overlap in. Amos was my 5, and I believe he was your 5 as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And just a physical player. I think that's for your concern being, well, Maxwell Hairston's a striker, but he's not a big guy. Trey Amos is 6'1", 190, and had big time ball production this past year. Love the physicality that he brings. I think he'd be great playing a lot of cover 3. I know he can play some press man. Mm-hmm. I'd like to play him in cover 3 and let him play stuff top down and really be aggressive, triggering on stuff in front of his face.
Yeah, I think he's easy to figure out. Really versatile player. I love how he leveled up, right? Starts his career in Louisiana, winds up getting to the SEC, really validates who he is. What did you think of
quick cup of coffee in Tuscaloosa and then went to Ole Miss?
Ole Miss, yeah, everyone went to Ole Miss. That really kind of worked out. I don't know how that team wasn't good this year. Maybe they were. I have no idea. But the one thing about Trey Amos that was surprising to me, as we kind of get into maybe a wart here, it sounds like there's some vertical separation that he gave up, and he's got plenty of speed, plenty of makeup speed. But did you think it was more about like he kind of has that comfort playing in the trail and like wants to be able to break on the ball from that position, or did you feel like maybe there were some hip elevation issues that allowed when he had to flip and turn that kind of allowed guys to get a step? But I just felt like that was the one thing that on tape I kept kind of coming back to was like, as these routes elongate, there was some vertical separation that kind of surprised me.
I think he's a taller hipped guy, right? 6'1", and I feel like he's somebody when he plays, particularly in phase, you kind of get a sense that he likes to try to bait some throws.
Yeah.
And I think maybe puts himself in a little bit less of an advantageous position as a result of, he ran 4.43.
Yeah.
But he also, his 10-yard was 1.6. So like his 10-yard split's not as.
And his vert was not good. 32.5 is not.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do think that I think it's fair to point out, I think he's got better, like open your stride speed. And if you're playing in phase and you have to kick it into that gear to pick up the ball in flight, if guys can hoof it, they might be able to tag you a little bit. But that's why I like him playing in cover 3 for me personally, because you're automatically baked in, you're leveraged over top of all that stuff.
Right.
And then if you get the chance to pick up the ball in flight, I think that's one of the things he does really well is pick up the trajectory of the football and convert into not running the route for the receiver, but like going and attacking the football down the field.
So you had Shavon Revel. Is that the difference in our top 5? You had him at 4, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I did.
Now we've done an episode on him. And I love Shavon Revel.
Can't quit him.
Well, you shouldn't, because but there's like 2 things that really just, as I was stacking it and really considering things, it's he's coming off of the ACL tear, which is not great. It was in September.
Fair question. Yep.
But then I thought his ball skills were just okay. And he's like a little bit older, right? He's going to turn 24 in April. That's not like he's ancient. Like, don't get me wrong.
He turned 23 in April.
Oh, I have that he turns 24 in April.
April 12th, 2022. Draft do math. Come back. Just put him at the top 5 now. We're good. Slide him back up.
That's interesting. Well, that's good. That's good information if that's true. Then I need to.
I think the ball skills question is a fair one that you kind of brought up. I do think that's something that, but he didn't have a lot of opportunities this year, but he had 2 interceptions and 2 passes defensed in 4 games this season. So I think you kind of saw the needle move in the right direction a little bit. And I think that for me was just the trajectory of everything before the injury. I'm leaning into the trajectory.
Yeah. There's a lot to like. He's not far behind. We haven't got to our next numbers, but he's number 7 for me. So he's very close. Yeah.
So he was the first one out for you.
Yeah. Of the top 6 that we talked about.
Yeah. And then Maxwell Hairston was the first one out for me.
Okay.
So Azareye'h Thomas is really the big divide player that we have at this point, where you had him 6
I have him 6.
Okay, why don't you go 7 through 12, and then I'll do 7 through 12, and I guess we should probably do that after the break. Huh?
Yeah. We'll give our back half, and we'll debate Azareye'h Thomas on the other side of it. Folks, be sure to stick with us.
All right, Joe Marino, 7 through 12.
So Shavon Revel, I have at number 7. And here's something, this is another thing that bothers me about Shavon. He did an interview where he finally came out where like people figured out that Shavon is like you would say Shavon. It's Shavon. And he said, you know what? Now that the cat's out of the bag, I guess I'll tell you how to pronounce my name. But he was planning on it being a thing where when he gets to the league, he'll let everyone know how to pronounce his name. So what are we doing here? You're intentionally letting it happen for years, and then you want to come and correct everyone? Like, I don't know about this. This is a little sketchy for all the people that yell at us about pronunciation.
The pronunciation police, yeah.
You never know. Sometimes people want it, and want to have their big moment. So, anyways, he's number 7 for me. Darien Porter, Iowa State. I look forward to discussing him with you at number 8. Jacob Parrish out of Kansas State is number 9. So those are my firm 2s.
Yep.
These guys are 3rd-round grades. Zy Alexander, LSU, Kobe Bryant, Kansas at 11, Darien Strong, corner Virginia Tech at 12.
Darien Strong, I like that.
Yeah, I like him.
Okay, so we do have some variants here.
Good.
I have Maxwell Hairston is number 7 for me. Jacob Parrish from Kansas State is number 8 for me. Benjamin Morrison is 9 for me. Those 3 all have 2nd-round grades. And then I have Azareye'h Thomas at 10 with a 3rd-round grade. He's 75th on my overall board. Kobe Bryant from Kansas is 11. And then I have Noel Williams from Cal at number 12. Those are all 3rd-round grades. And then I want to give an honorable mention shout-out to Darien Strong, who you mentioned. But I just finished this morning Za Frazier from UTSA, who's another one of those. Joe, they have another 6'3",
oh, good,
4'3", 33-inch arms corner at UTSA.
We'll have to take a gander at him. I saw another board that had him ranked in the top 3 rounds as well. So I'll add him to my list to get to. He was
my highest 4th-round grade. It's the 13th for my Baker's dozen.
While we're giving out shout-outs, I do have Benjamin Morrison as CB13. He's a 3rd-round grade for me. So for anyone, any of the Notre Dame fans, which I know they're out there, it's yelling at me about Benjamin Morrison. He's a 3rd-round grade for me.
Yeah. Okay. So you want to do Azareye'h Thomas, or do you want to do Darien Porter?
Both?
Which one do you want to do first?
Oh, let's do Thomas.
Okay.
So measurables are terrific. 6'1.5", 197 pounds, 32 3/8 on the arms, 10-inch hands. Young, he's 20. He won't turn 21 until June. This is definitely an upside play, right? Like the press man coverage is really good. Like physical, powerful hands to create jams. He can choke out routes early. I think he maximizes his length. I thought his ball skills were better than the ball production. I wish that he had a little bit more to show, but I do feel like there's a comfort there when he's challenged. I love the physicality, the tackling. And to me, it's definitely an upside thing where he has length and athleticism and he needs it because he's still developing, I think, route recognition. He's got the high hip elevation thing that's going to exist with a taller corner, but it's kind of like the opposite of Jacob Parrish, where Jacob Parrish doesn't necessarily have the size or the length, but he's so instinctive and sticky that you know that he doesn't have a margin for error, but it's okay. For Azareye'h Thomas, he needs the margin for error, but because of his youth, and I think as an ascending player that in a bad year for Florida State, put his best football out there. I felt like there's a trajectory here that made me excited to kind of get in the boat and see where this takes us. So it's a bet on traits guy. Like I definitely acknowledge that, but I felt the level of comfort, sticking my chest out a little bit for him.
So Thomas for me is a scheme specific type of starter. And we just got done at the end of last week, and we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the week, putting different filters on different players for different schemes, producing different grades. Mm-hmm. Doing it for 33rd team, I'm grading for all 32 teams, right? And I think that's very indicative of I have man coverage ability and I have zone coverage ability equally valued in the universal evaluation. Mm-hmm. You put this guy in press man, it's a different story.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I also know realistically you can't just live in press man at the NFL level. Like
yeah.
We got to be able to diversify a little bit more. And when he's not playing in the contact window and on bodies, you talked about the high hips. I think some of the inefficiencies with his feet and the ability to anticipate things a little more. I think that is just a work in progress element for me that he's going to have to make the leaps in. And does a team draft him with the intent of playing him in press man? Does a team draft him with the intent of we're going to develop you and turn you into more of a zone type player? And then the ball skills question, I would generally agree the ball production looks worse than what the ball skills have been, but it's not one of the more proven elements of his game either. So all of that to me just kind of adds up where I look at his profile and I say, look, if I'm grading for a very specific set of criteria, I very clearly see the vision and can buy in on the player. But if I'm grading for all 32, I think there's some gaps in the resume here that I think are just bigger gaps than some of the guys I have in front of them.
I think it's very fair. Darien Porter.
Dude runs like the wind. Right? I think that's the first thing with Darien Porter is is he the longest corner in the class?
He's got 33 and an eighth. Yeah, he's got to be, right?
Unbelievable length.
He's got the longest arms for the most of the meaningful corners, right?
Right. And then with the Senior Bowl GPS tracking down there, he's over 22 miles per hour on the gun. Like he ran in the 4.3s. He can absolutely fly. He had case in point, whose 10-yard split were we just talking about?
Trey Amos.
Porter's was a 1.49.
Yeah.
Right. So you've just got another gear here. He's another high-hipped player, so I understand some of the apprehension there. But you mentioned Azareye'h Thomas and the margin for error he has because of the length that he has. This guy has it more. Now, he is an older player. He's going to be 25 years old before the end of his rookie season and has just 3 years of cornerback experience. So that's how I reconcile that with Darien Porter, is late convert to just playing corner, which makes me feel better about the age element with him.
Dude, he's got every unteachable thing. He has it. Like there's an unreal physical upside here. And what I love about it is it's led to playmaking, right? Whether it's making plays in the ball, there's tackling moments where like he can just out athlete these ball carriers and they're trying to make moves, but there's between his length and his size and his like ability, his quick twitch, they can't go anywhere. Yeah. It's very, very impressive. Plus he's blocking kicks, he's blocking punts, he's flying down the field as a gunner. You know, I love everything. I love all that. He's 24 and he's played 367 coverage snaps. He's, you know, like he started 7 games. I think the good thing is like, I think Iowa State only runs zone coverage. So there's a surprising comfort that in watching his 24 tape where it's like,
I can get you, keep going. I can get you the exact coverage.
Well, I was very surprised. I thought I would see a rawness. I'm like, oh, they play zone every snap. And he seems pretty comfortable doing this, which was kind of good to see. But it's one of those things where I wrote down in my notes here, like there is a level of arrogance required with a high pick in Darien Porter. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but reps either matter or they don't. Right. And we've had these conversations about quarterbacks, Amarius Mims, like there's these under-repped players and it either matters or it doesn't. And if the more you do something, the more time on test, the better and more comfortable you are at doing it, you know, like there's a bit of a curve here and he's 24, you know, so it's a little bit challenging to put it all together, but man, there's a lot to like about the overall profile.
Yeah. So, 20 coverage snaps in 35 games in cover 0, 52 coverage snaps in cover 1 in 36 games played. Oh, gosh. 31 coverage snaps in cover 2. So that could be 2-man or that can be, well, I guess, no, that's just covered like zone cover 2 because his 2-man coverage split 16 coverage snaps of 2-man. So you go 0 cover 1 and 2-man. It's 70, 270, 88 coverage snaps total.
Okay. and then the rest is
cover 3, cover 4, cover 6.
Yeah. Okay. So that was pretty right about that. They run zone.
But what I like about him is for being a higher hipped guy, when he flips his hips, when he's underneath and he's got to flip and sink on stuff because of the length that he has. And then like he really does have, I think, really oily hips. And then that initial explosiveness, I think he can cut those windows outside the numbers pretty significant.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
He gets me excited. But it's also like from a valuation perspective, there's like a both sides of the equation. Mm-hmm. There's a tug. Like,
yep. I get it.
Yeah, you could get really excited, then you could talk yourself into being a little nervous. But
were you aware of his track background?
2-time state champion in the 400 meters.
Yeah, he ran the first 400 meter in under 47 seconds in Iowa high school history.
It's healthy.
Think about that. That's a quarter mile.
Yeah, that's 2 laps around the track, brother.
Depends on how big your track is.
Well, it's standard track around normal football fields that you see in your life, you know?
So isn't it only 1 lap around? Isn't it 400 is 1 lap? We're not going to do it. We're not doing this. Wait. We're not doing this right now.
Wait. You're right about that. 1 lap. It's 1 lap.
But we're not doing this right now.
2 laps is a mile. No, 4 laps is, brother.
4 laps is a mile.
So
it's 1,600.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
Draft Zoom math.
Why do we do this to ourselves?
Any other thoughts here on the corner group that we had?
I think it's a good.
Give me your elevator pitch on. So how many 3rd round grades did you give out? Was it 13?
I gave out 4 3rd round grades: Zai Alexander, Kobe Bryant, Dorian Strong, and Benjamin Morris.
First through 3rd.
13, yes.
13, and I had a dozen. So we got pretty much the same numbers, and my biggest bucket is 4th round guys that can either swing up a little bit or swing down a little bit. So, and that includes Zai Alexander and Dorian Strong.
Kind of high floor, low ceiling players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really like Dorian Strong. He's got some Cam Smith to him.
Well, what way to make everyone not like?
Listen, Cam Smith's issues are not physical ability issues. Okay.
Right, because I liked him at South Carolina. I told Dolphins fans he was going to be good, and now it looked like a liar.
Yeah, stop liking our picks. To be fair,
you keep liking our picks if you will, please.
You can pick one that's realistically expected to be there because your team has a need at corner.
Yeah, 30.
It could be 30, or it could be one of the 2 2s that you have. Assume the 2nd round guys would be available.
I think I'd like if I could just really have it my way. There'd be some impact defensive lineman that I love at 30, and then you'd come back at pick 56 and get Darien Porter. I don't know if that's going to work out, but I think that would be my dream.
Okay.
But I would be fine with a stick and pick of Amos or Thomas at 30.
What if you got Porter at 30?
I talked myself into I said there's the good side and the bad side. You'd lean all the way into that good one.
Good. Very good.
Yeah.
Because Porter snuck in on, I think, 3 of my last 4 mock drafts in the 1st round. So
I get it. Yeah.
That is going to do it for us here today on Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Crabbs. He's Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys as always checking out the show. We got more NFL Draft Spotlight coming your way the rest of the week. Keep it locked in right here, Locked On NFL Scouting. Talk to you all again tomorrow.